Hey, I'm Sunny D.
And I'm Captain J.
And we're the Pot Smoking Moms. Hey, welcome to this Wednesday. We're doing things a little bit differently. We are going to now be posting our interviews opposite show day.
Yeah, so before our interviews used to be at the end of the episode, we would have our segments. At the end of the episode, we'd introduce our interview. But now, since our show is bi-weekly, what we want to do on the off weeks is air our interviews. So this week, we are speaking with Liv Vasquez.
Liv Vasquez. She's a winner from Netflix's Cooked show, which is Cooked with Cannabis, which is a, cooking show, weed cooking show.
Yeah. I mean, she's not a stranger to the show. She was on our episode before. I think it was,
episode 50. Yeah.
One of our more popular episodes, actually.
Exactly.
So definitely, if you have not listened to that episode, go check that one out.
Yeah.
I don't think we're doing video then. I think
I don't know. I don't think we were doing video then. It was probably just audio.
Yeah. If it's on YouTube, it's probably just that logo, and you would put
right. You would just see it was a show card and then just the audio.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we actually met Liv through TikTok.
We
got
did.
on TikTok at the same time and enjoyed each other's content, and then we're like, oh,
we're both we were in the cannabis space.
Chef?
Yeah, we're like, oh yeah, you speak our language. And then it turns out she is a lot more like us than we thought, because she's a millennial like us. She's seen all the same shows. She's
grew up in Florida,
Yeah. And she's, it's always a fun time to talk to her.
Yes.
This time we went a little bit different with her. She's pivoted into more of like a, what would we say, like commentary, like social commentary?
Yeah, so much. Yeah.
So
tongue twister again.
Yeah. So we had a lot of social commentary with her of a lot of things that are happening now.
Celebri-tea.
Celebri-tea. So here's our interview with Chef Liv Vasquez. We hope you enjoy it. All right. Hey, Liv, I'm so glad that you joined us today. I see you on the internet all the time. I be DMing you and all the controversies and stuff that's happening. So I'm really glad you are back on our show, because we always have a really fun time with you. So welcome back.
Nice. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I always have fun.
Yeah. And what's going on in your life? So last time we talked to you about reality TV and your show and the show that you were on Netflix. What do you have cooking up these days? I know you have a podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Anecdotal with Liv Vasquez. So I cover kind of everything that I talk about. I talk about the anecdotal medicine that is cannabis and all of the stories that we share with each other, because it's not medical advice, but sometimes hearing those stories helps people, just encourages them to try new things or maybe try something else in their own routine. And I give some education around cannabis, but I also talk about celebrity conspiracy theories and celebrity gossip, and then give the listeners a little bit more information about my life, because over the years, I've worked a lot of jobs. I've worked with a lot of celebrities. And so it'll be kind of my perspective on things or stories about my life that I think could give people inspiration or information. And it's all wrapped up into one podcast. And we have like 9 episodes out now.
Yeah, and I mean, I watch your TikToks all the time, and I get sucked in, so I can totally see it going on for a whole podcast, because there's so much that you talk about.
Yeah. It's just like everything that I think is fun and interesting as like a person, but also as a stoner.
And that's why we love you so much.
Right?
I know that.
Yeah, so that's.
You were on a couple other TV shows that, or at least you had another show that.
Yeah.
Guest at your house, and you cook for them. Can you tell us some about that?
Yeah, I was on. Now it's on Max, but originally it was on the ID network. A show called 101 Places to Party Before You Die, and my house is one of the 101 places you should party before you die, because I made some infused food. I talked about culture and weed culture and food culture. And it was a really fun experience. John Gabris and Adam Pally, they are so funny, and they've been on TV and in podcasting for so long. So it was really just fun to have them over. And I wish that there was just like so much that was edited out for time, but I wish I had like somewhere that people could watch that full interview because it was so much fun.
That'd be cool if you had
That's
access to
cool.
the edited version.
Oh, I wish.
That's cool. Well, I actually she was talking about the content that you make regarding celebrities and stuff. That's some of my favorite content that I see when you come up on my For You page.
Nice.
Because I don't I like the tea, like it was like the celebrity the celebrity tea, and like I don't keep up with it all, but I like to hear about it. That's what's so great about TikTok is that you really get
Yes.
So
yeah, I like to be informed, but I don't want to be in the drama. I want to be informed of the drama. I don't want to be in the drama.
Because it's like a rabbit hole. Like some of these things, some of these conspiracy theories too are pretty crazy.
Or I was telling her like too, when it's like TikTok drama, when there's a hot day of TikTok drama. Before we started recording, we were talking about today, and again, I'm like, me and we are on the same wavelength as Liv. We're millennials. We know a lot about pop culture. We're stoners. Like we love food. Like it's like come on. So I was like, oh, did you by any chance see the Tess Holiday thing? Because she had gone live today. This plus size model, Tess Holiday, and she was talking about some drama with one guy, the Leo Skepke guy, and it was just like about plus size fashion, and that was just today the hot TikTok drama.
And that's like
for me.
I've already seen like 3 lives where people were chiming in and giving all of their information, like their ideas on it, and so many videos of people stitching him to be like, okay, like this is just
like
erasure of like,
yeah, like girls,
and it's like,
ew.
and all of this, like fat phobia is rooted in racism. It's a direct correlation. So it's like you haven't done the work to just do your own therapy and see what the root of some of these things are. Meanwhile, this guy has a whole podcast where he's giving out advice to people, and his whole thing is like being like an advice guru kind of guy. You're 26. Like you haven't even had your Saturn return.
He thinks that because he has lost weight and he has changed his life, he has that empowerment. So that's gone to his head, and so now he thinks that he has all this to like offer to people. When exactly what you said, he hasn't done the work because it is apparent by his going after, I know Jay might not be privy to this information.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about right now.
It was about
I missed this
fashion
today.
and how horrifying it is that there's these companies trying to sell plus size clothing in horrible styles and ugly patterns, and then we resort to going to fast fashion, which we don't want to get chubby girl clothes because nobody accommodates us like that. And so he was shitting all over the idea of people being more inclusive with their sizing. And so it was just a whole mess today, girl. And like, he is like someone who again has way too much confidence for what it's worth. And
he's another man with a microphone.
And he loves to hear himself talk, and whatever the fucking black tank top t-shirt comments were beautiful. That guy needs to have
it's literally all he wears
on a platter,
Yeah, and I just feel like with the TikTok drama, it goes by very quickly. Like the new drama will be tomorrow, like you'll get really wrapped up in somebody's life. Right. Yesterday, there was one where this lady was on Facebook and then they brought it over here. She had this husband who was British and a chef. And she was like, this is my husband. He abandoned me and his 2 kids. I've been looking for him everywhere just to get a divorce. And TikTok was on it. They were calling him out. They're like, this is your episode of Chopped. We found you. They were like telling everything. And then they found him somewhere in Texas by the end of the day.
It's amazing. I love the sleuths, the TikTok sleuths. Like they find
me too.
It's insane. Like there's no hiding. There is no hiding. Just like the whole.
I wonder why they want to ban TikTok, y'all.
Right.
Figured out who Legion was, and
yes,
Yeah, that's
Have they
funny.
followed up with that guy? Have they followed up with her ex?
He's
What is
still
that guy
posting
doing?
stuff, like
He
acting
is.
like he's getting interviews for. He was acting like he was being interviewed at Netflix, and
I
he was
saw
like,
that.
"Oh, just worked all day, and then I filmed for Netflix all night." It's like, please, but he's still posting stuff like Legion, like he's acting like he's being interviewed by other people and like posting his fake interviews. Meanwhile, Risa Tisa had so many people profit off of her story. She didn't get to profit. She was getting hundreds of millions of views, and TikTok demonetized her before she could even make any money off of it. And then all of these brands were saying, "Oh, well, you part of your story was getting a BMW. Come on down to whatever BMW." And they were making it like, "Oh, we're going to give her a car," and then they delete their post. And people are thinking she made $80,000 in her story, that she got a car, that she got a trip to Europe. Meanwhile, she's still working her regular job. She did not make that much money off of her story. And she didn't get a free car. She didn't get a free trip. Like, and now she's finally getting ads, like real ads where they're having her be the face of whatever. And it's like, good for you. So many people who were monetized, I call it the colonization of content, because there are so many, especially white women, who will take content from TikTok and bring it over to Instagram or Facebook or what have you, and basically recap the story and
Mhm.
not show Risa Tisa, not give her any click throughs, not split the money that they're making on their monetized account, recapping her story, and they're literally
Yeah,
profiting off of her.
I mean, I'm not
dude.
gonna lie. The whole reason I even watched the Risa Tisa "Who the Fuck I'm Gonna Marry" like playlist is because I kept seeing other creators talking about it, and I'm like, why is
Yeah,
everyone talking about this woman? And so I was like, let me go to her page and watch it, you know. And then I got hooked in the story and I watched the whole thing, and I was like,
You know, and
yeah,
it's like it's a good thing and a bad thing again, because it's like a remix thing. And like, okay, if your sound gets picked up and a
yeah.
bunch of people use it, a bunch of people get views, but it's nothing that you can do about it. There's
How
nothing
do
you can
I
say back to
profit off of
it.
that?
Right. And it's just like everything's a rip of a rip. Everybody does the fucking green screen shit when they play the video they want you to see, and they're in the front like, "Oh yeah, you see this video that I really liked and I'm showing you now," and you're just like, "Why is this life? Why is life like this?"
I feel like the duet feature, there are people who get kind of mad when somebody like does a duet and they don't add anything to it. They're just like, like,
they're just
like
watching it.
nothing. And it's like, I get what the person is trying to show that information and give it to their audience, but now we have the repost feature
Yeah,
that I don't know if we really need to do that duet with nothing added anymore. But some people are maybe set in their old ways of doing things. A lot of people have made content off of doing the duet, and when you do a duet, it's not monetized, so it's not like they're making money off of it. It almost doesn't make sense to do duets at this point unless you're adding something and
yeah.
like watching a video and making commentary. But like there are lots of people who do that, but then it's like, okay, well, at least we know they're not making money off of it. But then there are people who take sounds that are, trending on TikTok over to Instagram when they used to pay creators and we're making money off of a sound going viral or something like that. And it's like, okay, this is almost 9 times out of 10 a white person using a black person's sound. And it's like, that's not okay to me. I just don't think that's okay. Like, give that
Yeah.
creator the flowers, like make sure you're tagging them or say original sound by at the very least if you're gonna do that. And so many times they don't. And it's like etiquette. Of course, it's not like against the law, but it's also etiquette that we're like trampling over on the internet when it's just like decorum, like internet decorum. Like give somebody credit when you're stealing something from them.
At the very
I know,
least.
but it's kind of like the culture
Yeah.
too. It's like that's why, like,
Mhm.
oh, you could use the sound. It's kind of like encouraging for you to steal from other people, and like That's why it's kind of like good and bad. It's good because it could help you find more people, but it's bad because you could stand to not really gain anything from it overall. I mean, it's even superficial what you would gain.
Right. Like clout, what is it even clout anymore? You know, like what does it even mean anymore? Is it money? Like I feel like money is where it really like, okay, money talks. Like who's getting paid
Money is
for
where
it
it's
then?
at.
Yeah, like then make sure you're paying people for things that go viral, for their content, for their work, even if it's like in credits, just being like, hey, thanks for making this sound. I love it. Go check out their page. It's pretty simple. Like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like we all were on TikTok. Like we were TikTok friends early before 2020, right? I feel like,
I
or maybe
think
like
at the
early.
beginning of 2020, yeah, because
Yeah, because it was before like March. Yeah, because before the pandemic and everyone was on it. Like I was on it back in 2019 when it was just cosplayers. Like I joined it to watch like some cosplayer I liked. And that was like the only person I followed for like the first year I was on TikTok because I was just like, oh, okay, it's a cosplayer app where people are using sounds from movies, cartoons, anime, things that they like that they're not stealing from someone else. They're just dressing up and paying homage to whatever character they like. And so it's like, it's kind of like changed from musically to TikTok, where it was like the cosplayers. And then when the pandemic hit, it was a bunch of people like, well, I thought this was a kids app. I don't know. And then it's like, okay. And then it just,
millennials invaded.
Oh my God.
yeah.
And then it morphed into like QVC. I feel like it's just like the millennials have seen the whole shift, the circle, the full circle. So we're seeing old shit regurgitated to us in a different way. And we're just like, what the fuck is happening?
And I think that that's kind of the beauty of being on the internet for so long. Like Gen Z's been on the internet pretty much their whole lives. We had a childhood without the internet for the most part, you know? So it's like that is something that even if we try to cultivate that for kids now, it's hard to do. It's hard to get them away from YouTube or a screen that has some social media on it of some kind. And like that's a lot of different opinions from just anyone who has a phone, like who can just put it out there. So it's not experts, it's not people who know what they're talking about or people who have a specific like background in anything. It's just people like Leo just talking. And like you can take it for what it is, you can take it for face value, or you know, people make parasocial relationships with these people, but it's definitely evolved over time from, I would say, like Friendster, if you remember Friendster, and like before MySpace. We're just like screaming out into the dark abyss of the internet and being like, do you live near me? Like,
ASL, age, sex,
yeah, location. Everybody lived in California. I feel like everybody on AOL was like, I'm a Cali girl. Like, it was like everybody. But yeah, I mean, the evolution of like the internet. Meanwhile, we're here, I feel like at the end of the internet, there's no new social media platforms that we're all moving over to because we've moved from Friendster to MySpace to Facebook to Instagram. And now there's no place to go over to. So it's like, I think we just hit the end of the internet. Now what?
Yeah, I know. TikTok was just like, oh yeah, there's money to be made. Hawaii, and this is like now every other thing is an ad.
Yeah. We can't talk about TikTok without talking about the TikTok ban, like them trying to ban TikTok.
Oh yeah.
It's just fine. I find that so funny that they find TikTok threatening when Facebook and Instagram, they're all doing the same exact thing with our data.
Worse, like, even, yeah.
And you also talked about net neutrality in some of your recent content.
Yeah.
Also, and that's really important. And it's just like, that's the only thing our politicians can agree on is that TikTok is a problem. and we can't have TikTok.
And it's because how many people from TikTok are paying politicians? None.
Mm.
Meta's got all their sticky fingers all over our politicians.
Exactly.
So, like, of course, they want to eliminate the ones who can't give them a check.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, we're all
That and
like
all the information sharing. I feel like the access to information. They're like, it's just you find so much more out on TikTok that you don't see anywhere else.
Exactly, and this is the thing too. We all know that all of these news people are all propaganda mules. So now that's the thing. That's another reason why they want to go against TikTok, is because our generation is sick of the shit. We see through it, okay, and we don't get our news from the TV anymore because we know that's a fucking crock of shit. So we go to places like TikTok, which, you know, we don't just source our news from there, but it definitely shows us things and gets us going and looking for stuff, because, you know, we're not privy to it any other platforms or TV. We were talking about commercials and how obsolete those things are because we're rarely watching TV on a TV.
We're having to cross-reference probably more than any other generation to be like, is this true? Because, like, I think about my grandparents, they had 4 channels of news to watch. You watched one of the 4 channels, and that's all the news you're getting. And the Sunday paper, you know, like, that's the news you have access to. We have news access 24/7 in our phone from all over the world, and we have to cross-reference and see, like, okay, well, this whole media company is owned by this guy who it's in his benefit for people to think this or invest in this or what have you. It's like the influencer economy way higher up with way more money, right? Like, they're just influencing rich people to do rich people shit that screws over all of the rest of us. And it's like, now we have to spend all our time checking to see, like, okay, well, I saw this in the news, but is this a credible source? Is it just to get clicks on ads because they can put ads on everything? Or is it an opinion piece? You know, like, and then what does my friend think about this? Or what does somebody else I like on the internet think about this? Like, we're having to make all the references before we can actually put together our opinion.
Dude, and what about, okay, this has entered the chat, Hollywood being used as propaganda, like all of the money that goes from the government into Hollywood to help us
the
digest
Pentagon
that
has
shit.
a fucking Hollywood budget.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not in a bubble that the most popular movie franchise in the last 2 decades since 9/11 has been Marvel, that is heavily invested in the United States, like, army machine. Like, they pay into Marvel. It is, like, crazy because now we can't just sit down and enjoy a movie because you're like, oh, at the end of the credits, sponsored by the US military. Like, even South by Southwest this year, a lot of artists, like, they were going to South by Southwest, like, in the van on their way there, they find out that a super sponsor of South by Southwest this year was the Army, the US Army. Why are they in all of the art? Like, why are they here? And some artists, like South by Southwest said, we understand if you want to back out, and a bunch of artists backed out. Some of them took the stage and used that platform to say, the Army is a super sponsor of South by Southwest, and we're here, but we don't feel comfortable being here. And so we want to tell you guys about that. You know, like, they're in all of it because so many people, I think a big part of it is a lot of people have left the 9-to-5 corporate structure and are now working as artists, independent creators. And they see that these artists, like, are an economy in their own, and they want to make sure that they're pumping propaganda and money into it. And it's like, saying it even makes you feel like you're wearing a tinfoil hat. Like, even saying it out loud, and then you're like, no, they have said themselves this is part of the plan. Like, this, it's all the information's there.
Can I say this too? I thought it was really weird when Trump was in office. You remember, what is his name? Steve Mnuchin? You remember that guy? He was the Secretary of the Treasury, right? I believe he was the Secretary of the Treasury. that guy's name is in so many movies. My mind was blown, and I was like, why is he like part of the government?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there you
Why
have
was
And
it.
then it's like,
part of the government? Like, why do we have him as our president? What's a fucking joke?
Yeah, why is he
a
Secretary of the
joke.
Treasury? I mean, he's got a lot of money,
Why is he even
obviously,
allowed to
and
go again? Why are the decisions the same?
I don't understand how he could have a coup on the government and be able to run again. Like, you tried to overthrow the government. That
It
should
makes no
be
sense.
case
right, that
closed.
should be exactly. Move on. All right, that
Like,
book's closed. Now I got to deal with
how are
that
we still having
again.
this conversation? Like,
How? How has nobody
yeah,
found him and done something to him? I just don't get that. How is government
yeah,
working? How is this a democracy when that guy has done all the fuck shit in the universe and he's like, hey, by the way, I'm gonna try again.
yeah. I really do not understand, and I don't understand the people who are like still down for it. Like, yeah, he stole a bunch of our money in schemes. Even the people who were going for him, like, he stole their money. Like, and you're still batter up. Let's get it. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
Right?
man,
like,
that's
Let's
our
go.
dude. That's our dude.
yeah,
Well,
like,
I want to talk about fun
never.
celebrity tea stuff, and I want to put
All right,
this
let's
Yes,
use this.
to the test that Dee put together today.
All right,
So,
Dee,
Dee,
yes.
you made
put
this
tell us
just.
your theory
Wheel.
behind this wheel.
All right, so I threw a couple of celebrities up here, you guys. People who have been in the news lately, people who have had a lot of
Who have been on our
situations going on. Yeah, celebrity. So let's see who we get here in the wheel. And I'm gonna sing it this time. Here we go.
All right.
Oh, did it happen?
Spin
There we go.
that wheel.
We got
Oh
oh,
yeah,
Oh,
this is right on brand, like right on topic right here, because that's the most
right.
current thing I feel that most people are. Bro, this
This is a
poor
hot
kid is
topic.
being torn apart by the internet, right?
JoJo was one of the big parts of my hot topics today on the podcast. So this is perfect.
All right, go back to the other view, three of us. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
oh,
sorry.
JoJo.
I am so sick of seeing her in her Kiss costume. And this is the thing, this is kind of like the thing that I had this was my issue is like, okay, you're wearing this costume in your fucking video and then you wear it to your premiere and you're parading around in it and it's just like she's like I don't know,
And she
man.
said she
It's just
doesn't
a
know who
little
Gene
bit.
Simmons is. So she thinks she's
Are you
completely
serious?
original in having that look. She thinks she
But
came
then
up with this.
It's
hello, and then
bananas
did
to
you hear
me.
about? But okay, that makes sense because what about the whole gay pop thing and where Sarah and Tegan and Sarah were like,
Tegan, Sarah,
hello.
like
No, she's like, I
right
want
here.
to create gay pop. Like,
I'm
where
like,
did
I would
this?
love Elton John to stitch that and be like, hello.
Oh, and she claims that Elton John's one of her friends, like one of her buddies, like that they're really
It's like, but you think you invented gay pop? Oh, okay. I'm sure
Right.
Elton would have something to say about
I
that.
feel like how old is she now? Like she's really young, right?
20.
20? She's 20
Yeah.
now. I watched
Wow,
the
she
Dance
isn't even
Moms when it aired.
21.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
I saw her as like a little bitty girl. And she was a really talented dancer. She was really good on the show. But Abby Lee Miller, bro, she tore into her the worst out of almost all the girls in that group at the time that she was in the team. And then she
Yeah.
was there and ends up becoming this huge child pop star. And I guess she's trying to do this whole rebranding thing. And tell me what you think about this conspiracy that this whole rebranding thing that she's coming out with now is to try to divert the attention away from the scandal that recently came out about
Yep.
abuse that her and her mom did to the little girl pop group that they produced in that.
XOMG pop. Yeah.
That's what it's called. So do you know some tea on that?
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing about the thing about JoJo is JoJo has never been a person. She's always been a product, right? So she's never had a time in her life that she wasn't a product. And like I saw a like a meme the other day that was like, you could live your whole life on Jojo Siwa products, like because she has food, she has camping gear, she has hats and clothes, like everything Jojo Siwa branded, she has. Her mom has done, and her mom shopped her around to all of these opportunities until she got into Dance Moms. And then she said on Dance Moms, my mom bleaches my hair. So she's, as a kid, getting her hair bleached. I mean, it's child pageantry, right? It's toddlers and tiaras, but with dance. And so she's been that her whole life. She still lives with her mother in her house. So her mom is still influencing her and profiting off of her, even though she is an adult. And then they together start this girl group of XOMG pop, kind of like a Making the Band Diddy kind of thing, where they're looking for the new girl group. They put them together, and then now these girls are coming out with their lawsuit saying she was abusive. She had us working crazy hours. We weren't getting water. We weren't getting food. And I think that a lot of that is her passing on what she thinks is a work ethic when it's actually abuse. And I think she is doing this whole switch up to get all eyes on her, but she's also playing into a villain role. I like made a post on Threads where I was like, it looks like JoJo Siwa's listening party in LA was oops, all villains, because it was Colleen Ballinger, who she still hangs out with. JoJo hangs out with her family, who was all family vloggers who were grooming people who are exploiting their children. Tom Sandoval from Scandoval, who, we all know is the bad guy. And then Shane Dawson, who is also someone who's been in trouble for like grooming. And so she has categorized people in her mind as not being dangerous to children when they very much are. And so that kind of tells me how she looks at people in general and how she's probably had to categorize her own abuse, but that doesn't excuse her perpetuating abuse onto these girls who are just looking for an opportunity to just like have something. But apparently they were stealing merch sales on top of everything else. So these girls were promised money, travel, see the world, get to have everything you want. Meanwhile, you're just getting abused by JoJo Siwa, of all fucking people. And so now she's doing the whole like, I'm a bad girl. I wasn't ready to say I was a bad girl, almost minimizing that she actually was a bad person to these girls, like. And she's had exes come out and say that she was, really manipulative and bad in their relationships. But I mean, the long and short of it is JoJo Siwa has never had a time that she wasn't a product. And I don't think she knows how to be a person.
100%.
I mean, yeah,
that's why
you're
I feel
right.
bad for her. The girl never had a childhood. And like you said, Dee, she puts her face on everything. Yeah, that's what she was taught, for her face to be on everything because it makes her money. And that's like, I saw the car wrap thing that she put like a car wrap on
with her face on it, and then she wears clothes.
Like,
I was saying, my argument was like, she puts her face on everything. She wants to be taken seriously. She wants to be this new person, but like she wears shirt. Like, okay, if you wear a shirt with a picture of yourself, ironically, because it's funny, I get it. But like, she wears shirts with her face on it, like seriously,
all the time.
She's wrapped up in that world that she's been in for such a long time that she's so delusional that she doesn't understand that there's another world outside of her own world where like Kiss exists and gay pop music exists. And like she thinks she's a genius, and it's like, yeah, what you're saying, she's never not had an opportunity to just not be that. I don't know.
But she's making lots of money off.
It's sad, but it's also like, she is now saying she wants kids. That's her new thing. And she's like, I've had the names. It's going to be, what was it? Ted, Reba. I don't know. They're all like names that rhyme and are fake tattoos. Ed, Ed, and Eddie, like, basically.
Right.
And so, and she's like saying that because she hangs out with a bunch of people who exploit children. So she thinks that, oh, well, I'm growing out of being the child star myself. So what's the next logical step? Having kids so I can exploit them so I have longevity in my career. Like, she's thinking of that as a career move because she is like not allowed to be a person with emotions, basically, because she's just not having real feelings or like expressing them. And I don't think she exists like she exists online, where you look at other people like Tegan and Sarah who do not exist consistently online, where they're posting 500 times a day, like JoJo is. They have TV shows, they have records, they have like real accolades outside of social media. But if JoJo doesn't see them in her tunnel vision, they don't exist, right? So it's just like a matter of being chronically online and being a product instead of being a real person. And I hope that happens for her. I genuinely, truly do. That she gets to be a human being at some point.
She's really young,
Yeah, I
so
feel like
hopefully as she
oh,
grows older, she'll learn. I don't know, maybe
I
she's
hope.
out of the spotlight for a while for her to truly be able to find out who she is, because all she's ever been is Jojo
I think she needs
Siwa.
to get away from her mom. I think
Yeah,
that's the big.
I think recently she got an apartment, but I think it's only temporary because she was like working on a project or something, so she was living there, like in Atlanta or something like that. I saw something like that. I was like, wow, this girl actually getting an apartment, because I know that she lived in that big house with her mom for like ever.
Yeah.
And there's definitely, it's not healthy, that relationship with her mom. But
hey, and I have a prediction. I feel like we'll eventually in the future we'll see her on some celebrity therapy TV reality show where she'll be
Probably.
well, let's spin the wheel again.
Let's do it.
I'm not gonna lie, I have that stupid Karma song stuck in my head just because that shit keeps popping up on my phone YouTube, people talking about it and making fun of it. Oh,
Dan.
Dan Schneider.
Oh.
Of course, this one would come up. This is also really recent with the Quiet on Set documentary coming out. I don't think they realized how big that was going to be, and that's why they scrambled for this 5th episode, which I know you said you didn't see it yet, but it's basically kind of just a reunion kind of episode where they have some of the people back on again. They talk about some stuff about what's happened since the series came out. And I think they had like one other person that wasn't on there before. But the internet has been talking about Dan Schneider for a long time. Okay?
Yeah.
People on the internet have known this guy's a skis ball. And one thing that really irks me is that, yeah, all this stuff about Dan Schneider being misogynistic, like emotionally abusive, you know, all these things. And obviously the content that he was creating for Nickelodeon was very questionable, but no one actually spoke out about any direct abuse from Dan. We only heard about all the other predators that were on Nickelodeon sets. So it's really like, I'm wondering, when is someone going to come out? I think the closest thing is maybe Jeanette McCurdy's book, where she talks about the creator of her show. She never names him. She just calls him the creator. But again, it's not, it was mostly about like emotional, psychological abuse, never anything about any SA or anything like that. And of course, we can't talk about Dan Schneider without talking about Amanda Bynes. I know she's on that wheel, but do you know about the tea? Because I know you, D, and you were a big Amanda Bynes fan, so you followed her more closely. After this came out, I've seen content on TikTok. I'm not too familiar with it, about this old Twitter account where she posted as Ashley Banks, right? And they're like, oh, she told us back then and nobody believed her. So are you familiar with all that? Because I'm not really, until I saw that on my For You page. I was like, I wasn't a Twitter person, so I didn't know about all that when it was happening.
I was a Twitter person until Elon took over. So it was like a good run, but I got off there. So like, okay, so Dan Schneider, let's just go back to Jeanette McCurdy's book for a second. First of all, if you have not read it out there in the internet world, please read it. I got it from the library. It's incredible. I'm Glad My Mom Died is what it's called. And in that book, she says that she was offered $200,000 as hush money that she didn't take so that she'd be able to tell her story. So I think with like the Diddy thing, where he was calling everybody last summer, knowing that some lawsuits were about to come out, telling people who used to be on his label, I'll give you the rights to your music back if you don't, if you sign an NDA and don't talk about me. There are so many similarities with Dan Schneider and Diddy. And there's even an episode of All That, which Diddy was the star of. So Dan Schneider and Diddy actually do have a lot of things in common. But outside of that, if we look at comparatively the things that Dan Schneider, Diddy, and even Jeffrey Epstein all did was evidence, video evidence, photo evidence, and even Hugh Hefner also did this. I mean, I talk about Hugh Hefner like a cult leader, but that's a whole other thing. But taking pictures of everyone. So Dan had photos of these young girls getting changed and things like that because they were for costuming. So when you're doing costuming on set, they will take pictures for continuity so that you're making sure your outfit is the same if they have to cut in the middle of a day and have a lunch break when you go back on set. You have the Polaroid picture that has your outfit in it. So Dan would have the costumers take pictures of the girls when they were in outfits. Some of them were too tight, too small, very revealing. And he would make sure that he grabbed those Polaroids. So Dan Schneider does somewhere, and I've heard this from multiple Nickelodeon girls, that there were fittings that Dan Schneider was sitting in on, which is a whole other thing that should not happen. And that he would say, oh, can I have that Polaroid of certain bikini pictures, what have you, of these young girls. When you're 9, 10, 11, 12 as a young girl around a bunch of adults who you think know better than you because it's probably the first set you've ever been on, you don't think anything's weird about that. You don't know that it's weird until later on, maybe you work on a couple sets and you realize that's not the norm. But somewhere, Dan Schneider has a stack of Polaroid pictures of these girls doing who knows what. On top of that, you have people that were paid off who did take that $200,000 hush money because they probably had to because of, needing money. And they probably did sign that NDA so people wouldn't come forward. I think with the case of Amanda Bynes, this is something I used to joke about all the time. I used to say, once a girl gets 5150, that's when I'm paying attention. And I didn't know how prevalent that would come later in life with the Lou Taylor and conservatorships and all of that. But it's true. When all this stuff was happening in real time in 2005, when she was wearing the wigs and paying a cab driver to drive her from New York to LA and paying him in cash, I was paying attention to what she was doing. Yes, the Ashley Banks Twitter came up. I think it was around that time, and she was just spilling tea. But this was also in a time when she was about to get 5150. And Lou Taylor actually was around during that time trying to put her in a conservatorship. She was also trying to put Courtney Love's daughter in a conservatorship. And that's when she started sniffing around Britney Spears and Jamie Spears. And then eventually, we all know, she got Jamie Spears to put Britney Spears in a conservatorship. And she siphoned off millions of dollars of hers into her church. And apparently there's also allegedly a threat against Justin Bieber that she was going to do that to him. And instead of putting him in a conservatorship, she was basically like, you need to straighten up and stop getting arrested and in trouble and all this stuff. And we won't, or we're going to put you in a conservatorship and you need to get in line. And I think that's when he started running off with all of these celebrity pastors and things like that, because that was them getting in line. But this was all kind of things that we see throughout Hollywood. Like, we have these people like Harvey Weinstein and people like Dan Schneider who are taking advantage of people with women, let's just say women and children within the industry because they don't know any better and because they have been told they're dispensable. So if you don't do this thing I want you to do, we'll find somebody who does. And this guy was a grown man having parties at his house with children in attendance and doing scenes on set with other adults around where he's in a hot tub with Amanda Bynes and none of the other adults were speaking up because they were intimidated because of their jobs. They needed that job. So I think that a lot of people failed in all of this. But I think one thing that happened is no one got evidence of Dan actually doing these things. We have women who have been so abused that no one takes them seriously. They're called crazy because they're saying I was abused by an adult in a situation, and people don't want to sacrifice their childhood to believe a woman or that was a child at that time. And the Ashley Banks stuff that came out, she said she had an abortion at 13 and that it was Dan Schneider's. Now, we can't say that Ashley Banks is Amanda Bynes because technically we do not have the confirmation that that is true. So we can really take it as a blind item, a rumor, but we can't say like Amanda Bynes has straight up said this is what happened to her and we need to take her seriously. And that is the work, like that's the shitty part of it, is we can't even really rally behind her to say we believe you, we trust you, we know that you've been through something. And Dan Schneider is still getting away with it, and his dad is super rich, like he comes from money, so I don't think he'll be worried. I mean, he's been able to take the last whatever 7 years off since he's or 5 years since he got fired from Nickelodeon, and he's just been
like
off
millions and millions to be done with them. And
Yeah.
we have his freaking bogus response interview talk about the most rehearsed and like
Yeah, it was so
scripted
rehearsed. You could
interview I've
tell.
and he
ever
paid for it.
obviously
Somebody did like the trace back, and it was like
Guy.
the guy who interviewed him was one of the kids that worked for him. It was also a black kid that worked for him because when we saw like how the black children were treated on that show. So of course there was probably some kind of intimidation, maybe a promise of a job for this kid. It wasn't like this guy had his own podcast and he was like, let me have Dan on and I'll interview him. No, this was a Dan Schneider production on its own. And like, this is the press tour. This is what he's going to do. I mean, Harvey Weinstein also was like, no, it's bullshit. I don't believe any of this when there's so many people coming forward. So
it's just really shady. Yeah, like the whole industry is just so fucking corrupt because of the fact that yes, Dan Schneider is trying to like throw the blame on the executives above him, saying everybody had to sign off on that. But he's right. He did it, but they did sign off on it, and that means that it's just as bad all the way up. And the fact that somebody like Brian can get away with what he did, get out of prison so quickly, and then get right back onto working on sets. Do these, like, how do these sets, how is it not required for them to do proper background checks and not allow these kind of people on sets around children? It's just,
but also it says a lot about his pull and connections that Brian had, because you can ask anybody in Hollywood who is not like a star on the screen, anyone who works behind the scenes in Hollywood, none of them have job security. It doesn't matter if you're great at your job. You can go away for 6 months and you're worried that people don't remember you and you can't get hired again. But this motherfucker goes to prison for assaulting kids and just waltzes out and gets another job at Disney. Like, that says something too.
Yeah, and what about
who he was and what he did? They had to have known. And the fact that all those letters that were written on his behalf.
That part.
Well, I think that I can forgive the people who were kids who wrote in, like the kids from Boy Meets World, like they were 19 or something.
No,
20.
No, I think they were like 20, 23, 26. And
like, were they? I thought they were still pretty young.
Like 2005.
No, they were like in their early to mid 20s when they signed on those things. Because remember,
I mean,
the Drake and Josh era of Nickelodeon, like, we're older.
Yeah.
That was a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I was watching it because I had a little niece and nephew who would still watch Nickelodeon and whatever, but that wasn't my generation, you know. All that generation was Keenan and Kel and stuff like that. which that girl was talking about at the beginning, how she was like the it girl, and then she was growing up, and then they were
And
kind of
I
like,
remembered her too. I
I
remembered her
remembered
being
her.
on all the shows.
And
And
I
like
remember
I
when she
was
had,
going to Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, like that's where we hung out after school. So I was like, I love Nickelodeon. I was fucking so pissed about all this.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, it really took a turn once Dan Schneider became their golden boy and was making all the content. Because I remember Double Dare and Salute Your Shorts and Are You
Yes.
Dark and Clarissa Explains It All. Like
Right.
that's the Nickelodeon I remember. And when
Yeah.
they interview the people from that time, they say that they don't have any bad
They have a
experience.
different experience,
That
right?
wasn't their
They have a
experience. Yeah. Like they had Mark from Double Dare on, and then he made a video saying he
I
was
saw
kind of
that.
bamboozled. Like he didn't know it was going to be talking about Dan Schneider. And then they showed him that thing, and he was like, did this air? Because he wasn't on Nickelodeon at that time. And like,
right.
I understand like feeling bamboozled by that, but I do think that he was part of Nickelodeon and a name that people recognize with Nickelodeon. But I don't know if he necessarily needed to be there for this, you
Yeah.
know? It's
Like
tough
Right.
though.
they should have just like pat him for the part at the beginning. We're like, oh, remember the good times in Nickelodeon before
Yeah, yeah.
it became like this? Or Hey Dude was another one that I used to love watching too.
Oh my God, I love Hey Dude.
Yeah.
I loved that show. Yeah, like and like Salute Your Shorts, even there was some crossover, I guess, with like Donkulus. There was something that happened with him and Dan
That's
Oh
the
Schneider.
yeah.
I heard. That's the
So
only
it's
one
like
that era.
that's still in our era that he was, I mean, to me, like, and he
Yeah.
was there like pulling strings. And I actually remember Dan from Head of the Class because I watched that show like
I do
back in the
too.
day.
Exactly. And
I never
I
saw
was a
it.
really big 80s I'm a big 80s movies fan, and I'm a big John Cusack fan. And he's
Yes.
better off dead. He's the one who hosts the foreign exchange student at his house.
Yeah.
And look, even when you look at that movie, that guy is so creepy. And even like
All of it is like
but the thing
problematic.
too is like
But I love that movie.
there was a lot of
A lot of movies from
problematic
back then are problematic.
behaviors that people were making excuses for, right? Because
Yeah.
nobody was wanting to address issues, and people who were in charge of other people, or people didn't want to lose opportunities because they, said something about somebody. But yeah, like yes, I was
Meanwhile,
watching
like
all
John
of that
Cusack has come out and been like kind of amazing. Like he's like an activist and he speaks out against things and like when people are creepy, he's just like, don't be a creep. Like John Cusack weirdly has been like kind of okay. Like but he played some real creeps. I mean, when you think about Better Off Dead, he kind of was the first of those like whiny boyfriends. It's like if you leave me, I'm gonna kill myself. Like, I mean, that's kind of the premise of the whole movie.
Right, right. The whole Beth thing, when his girlfriend breaks up with him, and how psychotic. Like, yeah, very problematic. I mean, there's a lot of those movies that you go back and watch again, and you're
Oh,
just like, ooh, 16 Candles is one that I bring up all the
oh my
time. There's
God,
so
yeah.
many problematic scenes in that movie where it's just like, wow, we thought
So
this was
many.
okay.
And we romanticized it. Not even like think it's okay. Like we were like, I hope it happens to me. It's like
Right.
no.
Okay, let's,
No.
let's spin the wheel one more time
You
for this.
think so?
Yeah.
You
One last
sure?
time.
One more
Come on.
time?
There's got to be
Okay.
three.
I'll try to make it fast.
Okay, all right. We'll do one more. All right, let's see.
I hope it's Diddy.
Let's see.
Oh shit! I gotta stop on him first.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like laggy.
What's going on? Oh, Beyonce. Okay, this is we can work
Beyonce.
Diddy into this too.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Oh, the tea on
Ah,
Miss Beyonce lately.
there's so much.
We all know the Illuminati rumors. We all know. Okay, the most recent thing that I'm like for real that people are like trying to conspiracy theory that Blue Ivy is not Beyonce's. Have you heard this one?
Oh yeah, that it's Jay-Z's ex-girlfriend and then
One that was
she
pregnant that they
yeah.
supposedly he had killed, and
Yeah.
took her baby and Beyonce, and it's actually Blue Ivy's, and it's actually Blue Ivy because apparently there was some kind of fake baby belly
well, when she announced, it was like she was like doing whole rubbing her belly and everything
back when she was pregnant. So people are now thinking Blue Ivy, like that's a pretty crazy stretch.
That girl looks like her parents. I'm sorry. She looks just like her dad, but then sometimes you're like, you do look like your mom. You know, like
I see it. But I was like, that is I have like conspiracy tea that I've seen.
I mean, there's plenty of things to like look at Jay-Z about. Like,
I heard they had Aaliyah killed. That was another.
I mean, the real thing that's not a conspiracy about Jay-Z is he started dating Beyonce when she was a teenager and he was like 30. Yeah. So like that we don't even need to speculate. That is true. Like that's kind of freaking weird, dude. And he's the only guy that she has ever dated. Like Beyonce. Really? I
didn't know this.
When you Google it, I knew they got together when she was young. I knew she was really young. And when you Google it, she tells people in interviews that she met him when she was 18 and then started dating him when she was 19.
She was 20 or 19, yeah. 19. And it's like, yeah, that's what they all say. That's what Kimora Lee Simmons said. Like, that's what they all say.
I'm sure it started sooner than that.
That's what Kylie Jenner said. You know, like, they're all like, oh, yeah, we didn't get together till I was 18. Also, that doesn't, like, magically change things just because you turned 3 days older or whatever. The man is still 30. Like, I don't know. So, I mean, what are you going to say?
I was just gonna say I had seen Kimora Lee Simmons' daughter. Wasn't she with like some older guy too recently?
Yes.
Like making out with him on the beach.
Girl, yes. I want to be like, have you learned nothing? Have you learned nothing from your mom and your dad?
Yeah. What the fuck?
I mean, I have always, because you know, when I lived in New York, Kimora Lee Simmons, it was the baby fat time. Like that was the time. Like I literally danced on the clubs at the 40-40, danced on the tables at the 40-40 club. Like I was in the mix back in the day when it comes to like all of these people. And I feel like with Jay-Z, like my friend was at like the party where the elevator thing happened and told me all the tea on that. And I was like, I feel like I've been waiting forever to tell that story because I also don't know how, like, I can't confirm anything, but I was just like, I believe you. This guy works in fashion and PR, and he told us about it. Like, you know, the news came out on TMZ, I feel like the very next morning, but he was telling us about it, like, in detail. Basically, he was standing with Becky with the good hair. Jay-Z came over and he was like, how are you? You good? And then Solange saw and was like, hell no, you're not going to talk to the woman we know you cheated with in front of my fucking sister. And like, that's when they like, Beyonce apparently gave him a look and he was like, gotta go. And then they left and went into the elevator and that's when everything happened. So that was the last interaction before the elevator. But it's also like, don't make a fool of Beyonce. Don't make a fool out of Beyonce. Like, she's Beyonce. Like, you already have, like, made her write Lemonade and all this other shit. Like, get your act together, bro. Like, for some woman who's an editor at some magazine, like, really? But he does that. He kind of, I think he maybe wants to see how desirable he still is or something. And has these, like, affairs. I mean, truly, maybe, you know, like, who knows what his motive could be to cheat on Beyonce. But I also think that there's been rumors that there's something coming for him too with the Diddy stuff. There's a lot of rumors of him doing stuff, but unlike the Diddy stuff, I haven't heard anything about it. With Diddy, I feel like we were hearing things or kind of assuming things for years, like decades. I remember even before everything happened with Biggie, I remember seeing him on stage on I don't know, some like video of him on stage with Puff Daddy, Sean Combs. And I was like, who is this guy? He gives nothing. Like, he was like just on the mic going, yeah, Yeah. And just like he's always with famous people, I never got what Diddy's thing was. And the more I like hang out with musicians and people like that, it's like those kinds of people buy their way onto stage. You're not there because this guy trusts you or wants you to be there. You add nothing to the music. You're not giving anything to the performance. Like it was very obvious to me early on that there was some reason he was there outside of talent because there's no talent when it comes to Diddy. He's not talented. He's not a rapper. He's not a singer. He's barely a producer. He's a TV figure. He's a white party thrower, but he is not someone who actually has talent. And so I think that he's leveraged things that he has on people from these white parties, from the get him to the Greek style parties. I mean, there's even an interview with MGK when he was on Hot Ones that's come back around of him talking about Diddy flying him out to Vegas when MGK was a Chipotle worker. He was 18. He was working at Chipotle. Sean Combs finds this Chipotle kid who kind of raps and is like, yeah, let me fly you out to Las Vegas to go on a bender for 2 days. What was he trying to do with that young man? Who
the same thing he did to Usher and Justin Bieber.
But these are all things that I think that we hear in interviews, and as an outsider, I'm like, that's weird. Like, I don't even think that's like, oh, that's funny. Like, that's weird, right? And I think now with all of these lawsuits and things that have come out in discovery with Diddy, we're seeing like, okay, that's like a case. Like we could see where he was doing these things. But with like on the other turn of it with Jay-Z, with Beyonce, we're not seeing those stories coming out. And Jay-Z and Beyonce have more power and money than Diddy. So it's very easy to think that they can cover things up or get rid of people if they need to, if they don't want certain things to come out. Because the Becky with the good hair fight in the elevator, to this day, nobody knows the true story of that. No one has said, like, I definitively can say, this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened. We all know it happened. We have the video footage of it. We don't know what they said. We don't know what led up to it. We don't know the person who catapulted that fight into happening. And that is because they have a machine of covering things up as much as they have things of putting things out in the press. So I actually do like Beyonce's music, but there's like this, I don't know, it's kind of like a fan thing that people think that she should be with Chris Martin because Chris Martin like loves Beyonce and they've done music together and they like do little projects. Yeah. So like Chris Martin and Goop and then Jay-Z and Beyonce all used to hang out together. But then when they consciously uncoupled, there was a lot of stuff where Chris Martin was like going out with Jay-Z and Beyonce, doing stuff with Beyonce, like music wise. And then like even like going on stage and doing things with Beyonce. And so I always like joke about like, oh, me and Chris Martin can't wait for them to get divorced. Like, but I feel like I would love to live in a time where they separate, because if he is going down for something, that's not good for the brand, so who knows? I made a video recently about, I went up to the On the Run tour and I was like, that was the most awkward concert I ever went to because she's singing about lemonade and splitting up. And then she's like, no, my beautiful husband's going to come out and do X, Y, Z. And it's like, do we hate him or do we like him? Because I don't think I like him.
I would love to see Beyonce with somebody else.
Oh my God, truly. Like, and then there's also like the rumors that she's with her bodyguard.
You guys, though, I never knew that Jay-Z was like her first boyfriend and shit like that. Like,
she was
I remember
really young.
Yeah, and you know what? I did not put that into a timeline. Like, I really love her music again, but I'm not, and I know about the things that have happened in terms of like the elevator thing or whatever. But like, I never delved more outside of that spectrum to find out when she was with him, and I just remember just like, right, I just remember just moments of music with her. I didn't ever think of all of that relationship like that history.
And it's also that you don't realize how young she really is because she looks like a freaking full-grown like 20 something year old woman at 18, 17
Yeah.
years old.
Well, she was also performing and like working towards being the Beyonce star
Exactly.
forever. She was on Star Search. She was like, she followed the Britney path. She was doing all the same things Britney was. And in that time, though, Britney was with Justin. She had little romances here and there. Beyonce was with her mom and dad. And I can't name one other person that Beyonce dated. And I've looked to see if there was like, she's connected to, she was just singing, 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 singing. And then I think that Jay-Z, because he was already so established musically, he had a bunch of connections musically, that it was almost like a career move to be like, okay, my parents are okay with me hanging out with this guy. And he can, we can make some little songs together or whatever. They made, whatever, the Bonnie and Clyde song or whatever together. And then I think it was just kind of like a way of them slow rolling out their, whatever they call it, like power couple. But yeah, that's all she's ever known. And there's like rumors that she's been with Julian, her bodyguard, and XYZ. And now she has a song on the new album called Bodyguard. And people are like, but I don't think that, I don't know if that's true. I just feel like he's literally paid lots of money to keep Beyonce safe and he takes his job seriously. But I like it.
Not just Jay-Z.
Yeah.
And when I was making this little wheel celebrity roulette thing, Jay had suggested Beyonce and Jay-Z, right? And I was kind of like, putting the pictures together, and I was like, I'm gonna do a Beyonce one. So then she was looking through it, and she was like, why don't you just put a picture of both of them? And just to support this conversation that we just had, it's because it's Beyonce.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, like when I saw the On the Run 2, I was in the bathroom and I heard this girl go, I keep forgetting Beyonce's husband is here. He's gonna go up there and do his little act.
Beyonce
gonna go up there and
I love it.
I was like, exactly.
I love it. But I do like her new album, and I don't like country music generally, but her new album, what I've heard so far, is really good. Really enjoyed it. Listening to it while I was grocery shopping the other day. I was like, on my headphones.
I actually have a video that I made today that I was going to post later, but Lily Allen came out and said, like, why is Beyonce making a country album and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, you go later into the interview and it's Lily Allen's coming out with a country album later this year. And it's like, oh, you mean that Lily Allen, the Nepo baby from England, is questioning why my mama Alabama, my daddy Alabama, my mama Louisiana, Texas, Beyonce is making country music? That is interesting.
I'm sorry.
What a hill to die on.
To Lily Allen, because that's a whole other fucking can of worms. She has to say about how her kids ruins her career. And I'm just like, girl,
your mouth ruined your career every time she opens it.
And on top of that, like I used to like I've been really just deleting celebrities. I'm trying not to follow very many celebrities on Instagram. I'm just like over it. And now with the state of the world where it's at, we've seen a couple of celebrities recently really lose their shit and show some true colors, which have made me go, no, I'm not gonna watch you and your career or support anything you do.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah.
We need to stop idolizing celebrities.
But yeah,
well, I said I had like a whole segment on my podcast, I think it was like episode 3, about how celebrities should only be looked at as archetypes, right? Like we should only look at them as for society archetypes of what could happen in your life. Because even though this celebrity, it's like winning the lottery, it's not any set of skills that it gets you to being a millionaire celebrity. It's like a combination of a bunch of things and having some skill set, or usually just being really attractive. But like we can look at any celebrity and name someone who's been cheated on, someone who has gone bankrupt, someone who's lost their whole house because they made a bad choice. We should look at them as people who have the money to make the mistakes that we can learn from, instead of they're so good because they make money for being attractive or doing XYZ. And so that's how I kind of like to present them as like, look at this lesson we could learn from this dumbass. You know what I mean? I mean, like you have people like Tom Sandoval. I'm like, you are a white man who is not ugly but not attractive to me, who has access to connections all through Hollywood, and like this is the best you can do is this terrible cover band. I truly don't get it. And this is like a lesson in midlife crisis, right? Like it's a lesson that these men who don't have the money to start a shitty wedding band should look at and be like, you know what? Maybe I should take a step back and call my kids or something. Like, so yeah, I think that we can look at celebrities and take lessons from their mistakes, but we should never put them on a pedestal for just winning the lottery, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Right, but at the end of the day, not beat ourselves up because we're trying to do something and not getting somewhere because, it's not, it doesn't have anything to do about you with your talent or whatnot, but also circumstances play a big part of it. And sometimes we beat ourselves up because we don't get to a certain place we think we're supposed to be when we work at stuff. But it's like all we have are these examples of people who didn't start at the bottom per se, or if they did start at the
Yeah.
bottom, they sure had some sort of help to boost them up to the top.
And there are so many secret Nepo babies in Hollywood, in music, in academia. Like they are all over the place. And so to beat yourself up for not getting a certain opportunity or to a certain level by a certain age or what have you, that doesn't really mean anything because there's so many people who are playing with a stacked deck and you don't even know it, you know? So like we can't compare ourselves to celebrities because the comparison just isn't there, but we can learn from them, like learn from their mistakes, get our own information from them that we want. We can laugh at them and their mistakes. We should never feel bad about what our life's doing.
And you know what? With that being said, look, we've had learned a very lovely lesson from all this celebrity tea, gossiping, whatever you call it, and talking we have done today. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
And that was our interview with Chef Liv Vasquez. We hope you enjoyed it. Hey, she is on TikTok. She is on Instagram. We talk to her all the time on those two platforms at Livy Smalls. You can go to her website as well, livysmalls.com.
Yeah, that was a good time. And we haven't had the live yet. But I hope you had saw the live that we did with her on a Monday. And we, it was fun working with the wheel and doing stuff like that.
Yeah. So we hope you enjoy the show and we hope you enjoy our following show. Keep it locked to potsmokingmoms.com.
Bye.
Bye.